So when solving absolute value equations, there are two main steps that you need to know. The first one being that you are going to isolate the absolute value. In other words, in this example, I want to move the 1 over to the other side and the 1/4 over to the other side so that I'm left with the absolute value of 2x minus 6. The other step is once the absolute value is by itself, you need to set up two equations to solve so that you can have possibly two solutions to this equation. So first thing I'm going to do is subtract 1 over to the other side. Do not add 1 into the absolute value. You always want to move things away from the absolute value. The next thing I'll do is move the 1/4 over. Right now it's 1/4 times the absolute value. So the opposite of that would be division. Now, when you're dividing fractions, remember you use keep, change, flip. So the shortcut for this is you just multiply by the reciprocal. In other words, we're going to flip 1 over 4, make it 4 over 1, and do that to both sides. Now that the absolute value is alone, this is where I set up my two equations. So you set up one equation as is, all you're doing is dropping those absolute value bars. For the second equation, you're changing that 4 into a -4. So you always write one of the equations as if you haven't done anything to it. The other one, just change the signs on one side of the equal sign. So now I encourage you to solve these yourself. You can pause the video if you want. Otherwise, these were two-step equations where I had to add 6 and then divide by 2. So we got x equals 5 and x equals 1 as our solutions to this equation. Please make sure you always check your work. So here I will show you how you check your work, which is just like how you would check your work in any other equation. You plug in your answer and see if the left-hand side equals the right. So when plugging in x equals 5, you're replacing x with 5 and simplifying. Now remember, PEMDAS starts with parentheses. You can think of the absolute value just like parentheses. So I'm going to start inside with 2 times 5 minus 6. So 2 times 5 is 10, minus 6 is 4. Now the absolute value of 4 is just 4. And then 4 times a fourth would give us 1. So we end up with 1 plus 1 equals 2, which is true. So that means 5 is a correct solution. Do the same thing with the other absolute value. We're going to plug in 1. So I almost forgot my negative sign. But on the inside of the absolute value, we end up with 2 minus 6, which is -4. And remember, absolute value is distance from 0. So the absolute value of -4 is 4 because on a number line, we are 4 spots away from 0. And as you can see, we end up with the same thing as last time, so 1 also works. Please keep in mind, you may get a question where both answers don't work, so you need to check.